Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining the Brain 202, Editing and Gardening in Your Brain. Today's webinar is very exciting. It's all about some more advanced features of the Brain application. If you have signed up in the past for the Brain 101, this is the next step. So we're going to be talking today about a couple of features that are really useful in the Brain application, particularly if you have already created a brain and it's time to start doing a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of editing, and what we like to call gardening within your brain, just touching up certain areas of your brain that have become overgrown, so to speak, or in some ways a little bit more difficult to manage. So we're going to be sharing some tips and tricks with you to clean up areas of your brains to make it work as efficiently as possible while still reflecting your own thought process. So once again, many different features I'll be sharing with you today. Feel free to pick and choose and decide what features work best for you. And another particular thing about today's adventure together is that it will be holiday themed. So I'll be doing a couple of changes here within my brain and focusing in an area that is really all about the holidays. For me, that's Christmas. It might be a different holiday for you, but nonetheless, a winter holiday themed webinar is on the way. And before we get started, I will remind you that Jay Ofemi is going to be answering as many questions as he can in the GoToMeeting question panel. So feel free to present Jay with any particular questions that you have. If we do have time at the end of the demo today, I'll circle back and maybe try to address any questions that Jay is unable to get to if the question panel really loads up too quickly. So let's go ahead and get started. And the very first thing that I want to do today, in keeping with the holiday theme, is change my wallpaper and background. Now, let me also share with you, if everything that I'm sharing today is a little bit too advanced for you, if you've not signed up for a Brain 101 class, I definitely encourage you to do so. We hold those classes every Friday. And you can sign up for a Brain 101 to really learn the basics. But I'm going to get started today assuming you know that thoughts are the building blocks of the brains that we create. And thoughts can have notes, files, web pages, documents, emails, phone numbers, any type of digital data associated with those particular thoughts. And in this area of my brain, it's become a bit overgrown. Actually, under my Christmas 2019, the current thought that I'm sharing on the screen right now, I've got a lot of content and it's a little bit messy. I don't know which gifts are for who. These are sort of my gift buying ideas that I have down below with all kinds of links. We're going to clean this area up to make it really easy to understand and navigate. But before I do that, I still have my summer theme in the background, a nice blue ocean wave there. That I'd like to update and bring it more up to date with the holidays. And changing your theme and your wallpaper in the brain, it's actually a very simple process, but it's incredibly useful, especially if you use more than one brain database. It's easy to get that nice visual of this is my brain on a particular topic because of the wallpaper, the background that I see. So there's a few different ways that you can change your wallpaper. First, the easiest way, if you right-click on the background and click on Brain Theme. This is where we can change all the different colors of links and thoughts and choose an existing built-in theme. I don't have an existing holiday theme right now. So I'm going to find one. I'm going to click on the Options tab, and next to Wallpaper, I'll click on Select. Mine is already checked. There's my wave wallpaper. But I've got this nice abstract blue blurred wallpaper that I found online. I really like it. And it sort of looks like snowflakes on a window. So I'm going to select that and say Open. And notice that changes the wallpaper of the brain. And this changes the wallpaper of the brain everywhere. If you're syncing to the cloud for online access to your brain, your web client brain, the online brain, is going to have the same wallpaper. Your iOS or Android devices or other machines you're syncing to will have this wallpaper as well. Now, actually, in looking at this, it doesn't look as holiday themed as I want it to be. So I'm actually going to make a few more changes or keep searching for the right wallpaper. I'm going to open up my web browser. And actually, I did a little search for blue Christmas lights. I really like blue brains. And it's important to, or blue wallpapers or colors in the brains that I create. It's important to really utilize trial and error. What's going to work, what doesn't work. You know, if I get something that's too busy with all these lines and blinky lights, it's going to be hard to read the text. So I like to find something that's a little bit blurred out. This looks perfect. Image that I found online, very sort of holiday and cool and crisp. I like it. I right click, I copy that image. So I've got that image on my clipboard. And now I can right click in the background of the brain and select paste wallpaper. So very simple to get a new brain wallpaper in the background, really capture the focus of the brain that you're creating. And I change my wallpaper quite often, just depending on my mood or the theme or the project that I happen to be working on in a brain. And as you see, when I go to my entire brain list of all the different brains that I have, I can easily get that nice visual. There is my personal brain, whereas my canoe brain has water in the background. More utilitarian brains have tools and things like that. So I've got a lot of different brains for different purposes, but it's very easy to find now my holiday, I call it my Lord Bloom brain. It's just my own personal name. And for my brain, and I can easily find what I'm looking for. So great, I've set that up. The next component that I want to share with you is modifying not just the entire brain structure, but individual thoughts, giving individual thoughts more definition. So you notice here in my brain, I've got a couple of thoughts. Again, I mentioned earlier, these are all of my either gifts that I've purchased or gift ideas. It's a little bit cluttered. I don't know which gifts are for who. I don't even know what's on this thought called Target.com. Here's another one, Target.com. What in the world? I have to click and load up this web page in the content window. That's really great. Until I can finally see, this is the 43-inch flat screen TV that we're thinking about getting for my boys. My two sons are teenagers now, and they really, really want an upgrade to our very old television. So this would be a great gift. They would really love it. I am going to Alt-click on this thought and open up the thought properties display. So we here at TheBrain typically refer to this window as the TPD, Thought Properties Display. And this is where you can really modify all the different attributes of an individual thought. You can also view the history, so I can see when this thought was created. I created this back in November. I was doing a little bit of research to try and plan ahead a little bit. And so let's go ahead and click to simply rename. So I don't need to know this is coming from Target. I'll just say 43-inch flat screen TV. So give it a little bit better definition. If I do want to add a label on sale at Target, so just a little bit of additional information, and that shows up on the thought label. In other words, when I hover over, I'm going to click away to then close and save that information in the thought properties display. And now you can see when I mouse over, it'll remind me, hey, this is on sale at Target. So a bit of additional context. Let's make some more changes on this individual thought. Once again, I click, or I can Alt-click to open up the thought property display. And this would be the showstopper gift for my kids if we decide to get this. So I am going to change the color of the text, make that some really sort of bright yellow, and change the background to maybe a purple. So you can see that gives that thought, makes it stand out a little bit. Here I've got this cluster of all these different gift ideas. One of them is purple with the yellow print. It really kind of grabs your attention. So that's a nice, easy way to make a thought in a grouping of thoughts stand out a little bit. And of course, I can Alt-click on that again, and we'll give this thought an icon. And an icon is a really great way to, once again, give a nice visual effect to a thought. So I click and the brain has about 1,400 different icons to select from. This one is a TV, so I'll go down into technology, and if I want a picture, let's see if I have by default a picture of a TV screen. There's one, perfect. So I get that nice little icon that appears there. I use icons for, sometimes I put little gold stars. You'll notice if you've ever sat in some of my Brain 101 classes, I've got different icons that represent different levels of urgency or just to make it stand out just a little bit. But that's a really nice way to give a little bit more attention to a particular thought within the brain. Now, the next thing I want to do, because I'm really thinking, I've not purchased this TV yet, and I think we're maybe 7 or 8 days away from Christmas. So I'm really thinking about this thought. I'm just going to right click and select to make this thought a pin. So I right click and I select create pin. And notice in my pins up here, I've got my Thanksgiving pin still there. I don't need that thought there anymore. I right click and remove that pin. And that was just a shortcut to a thought that I'm frequenting. So maybe I'm checking this thought, loading it up on a daily basis, see if the price has changed. Maybe I'm waiting for it to go on sale, but I'm visiting this thought a lot because I'm kind of hemming and hawing over whether or not to purchase it. So I've just made a nice little shortcut to that thought. Pins are a really, really great way to navigate through a very, very large brain. It would actually probably make more sense to right click, and I'm going to remove that pin. I'll just pin this Christmas 2019. Right click and create a pin. So I've got a nice little shortcut now to all of my thoughts regarding Christmas. So let's focus on how we're going to clean this area up of the brain. There's many different ways to do that. The first scenario that I'm going to share with you, once again, is one of our more advanced features, and that's with thought types. Thought types are a way of classifying thoughts without necessarily changing the structure of how thoughts are linked or what's displaying in the actual structure of the brain. So let me share with you exactly what I mean. Here are my existing thought types. So I've got thought types for lakes, museums, fixing up an old VW Bug. This is a great example. I've got parts that are installed, parts that are incomplete, partially complete, or what I'm currently focused on or working on for this remodel. I'm going to do sort of the same thing here for this area of my brain. I'm going to create a new thought type for items that have been purchased. And that is going to be a new thought type. Now, I don't just want to thought type the thoughts that are purchased. I also want to say whether I'm considering the purchase or I have not purchased it yet. And I want them all to be grouped together or nested under my purchase area. Maybe I'll even rename this to not purchased, but purchase. So things that I'm going to purchase or maybe already have purchased. So it's going to have some subcategories. Under purchase, I'll have, and maybe just to keep them all together so I can identify them quickly, I'll start with a $sign. I'll say $complete. And I'll use the semicolon. I always talk about using the semicolon to create multiple thoughts at one time. It's a really, really great time saver. And even if you're not just getting started with the brain and just editing and evolving your brain, the semicolon is still incredibly a valuable tool. So I'm going to have 3 different subcategories under purchase: complete, considering, and semicolon once again, $sign. And the $sign is just a personal preference. I want to have the $sign in there so I know it's something that's being purchased. Incomplete. So I just created thoughts, not a thought type, but a thought in the brain. I want them to be thought types that are subcategories of the purchase thought type. So I right click and I select convert to a thought type. And I'll do that for each one of these. And notice it's very subtle, but the thought goes from having a square or rectangular frame to sort of rounded edges, a more oval or circular frame. And that's a nice visual reference to that is a thought type. So considering, again, I right click and convert to, I can convert it to a thought type or tag. We're going to be talking about tags today as well. Right click and convert this to a thought type. So now I have sub thought types. Let's take a look at what that looks like in the drop down menu of all my different thought types. Notice it grouped them all together. They're nested or subcategories underneath this major category of purchasing. And the reason why I did that is not only to keep them together in that list, I can run a report on all my purchase thought types, whether I'm considering, I've already purchased it, or I just haven't purchased it. I know that I will. I'm not considering it. I know I will. I just haven't done it yet. So that's an incomplete purchase. So I like to group them together like that from time to time, just as I did in my Volkswagen area. And now let's also apply an icon or some colors. So for complete purchases, I'm going to alt click, and I simply want to change that to some green colored text. And I'll click on the stock icon, go back into, should I go business? Maybe finance. Maybe I want like a little gold coin. So I've purchased that, so it gets the little gold coin. If I'm considering it, I'll alt click and click here, stock icon. If I'm considering it, it gets the silver coin, and I'll leave that with white text. And for incomplete, I know I'm going to get it. I haven't done it yet. Alt click. That's going to get some red text, and select my stock icon. Maybe I want a little red tag so that stands out. So I've created these fantastic 3 thought types. Let's apply them to that grouping, that sort of mess of thoughts, to see if we can clean this area up a little. So there's a couple of different ways we can assign thought types to thoughts. So an all new Kindle, I'm considering getting a new Kindle reader, book reader for my wife. So I right click and I select thought type and go down to my little purchasing group. I'm considering that. So it gets the little silver icon. I'll do that one more time. I'm considering a Nintendo Switch for my boys. That would be a big gift as well. So I right click and I go to my thought types of considering. So that's gonna, whoops, I accidentally clicked down below in my past thought list. Let's go back to Christmas and 2019. So that's gonna take some time to go through and set all of those individual thought types up. Here's another great time saver. We're gonna be talking about, and I'll be using this feature quite a bit today, and it's the control click. If you're on a Mac OS, it's done with a command click. But all of the items that I'm considering purchasing, I will now control click on. So I click on the control button and the Zen garden sculpture and Gmail, not that, Wood Brothers, Amazon item there, the all new Kindle, I've already got that, the wood mahjong set, sleeping pads for my kids, the camp stove. So I'm just going to go through really quickly, and that other target.com item. So I've control clicked on individual thoughts. I can also control click on a gate to select all those thoughts. In this scenario, it's just individual little groupings of thoughts. I can now right click in the selection box and say, set a thought type to considering. So those are items that I'm considering. Now I close. And let's control click on items that I've already purchased. So I've already purchased the doggy bow tie collar for my dog. I've already purchased these tickets. Talk more about those in just a bit. Oh, not that. So if I control clicked on an item that I didn't want to add into the selection box. So once again, control and click, and it removes that item from the selection box. So you can be very meticulous about control clicking and come back and change at any time. Eddie Bauer gloves, I already got those, and the Disney Plus. So I've control clicked, added those in. I right click in the selection box and say, change the thought type to complete. Those are complete purchases. And then finally, everything that I know that I'm gonna get, but I haven't gotten it yet. So we'll start getting those. Centro, the racing goggles, and the antique mahjong set, the mini nest, scavenger hunt, and this flat screen TV. I think I've made up my mind. So I right click once again and thought types as incomplete. I'm going to get them, haven't gotten them yet. Let's take a look at something really quickly. Notice this flat screen TV that I modified earlier on the thought level. I just changed the thought type on that particular thought to incomplete. I'm going to get it, but I haven't purchased it yet. But it didn't change the icon or the color as it did with the scavenger hunt, the vintage antique mahjong set, the Google Nest, etc. And that is because when you modify the icon of a thought or the color of a thought, that overrides a thought type that's being applied to it. So it still has that purple background with the yellow font and the picture of the TV. If I go in and remove those items on the thought level basis, it would then inherit the value of the thought type. So that's just something to keep in mind. And now that I've applied this, it hasn't changed much. It overwrote the icons of web pages and things like that that have been attached. But I'm going to modify how my brain is being displayed for me on the screen. I right click on the background, and rather than arranging thoughts by the date they were created, which is the setting I have right now, I'm going to arrange them by thought type. And notice it rearranges the thoughts, and now it really nicely groups together my purchased items, my considering items, and my items I haven't purchased yet. Already I'm looking at a cleaner display of my content, and it adds a little bit of value. I understand what this gold coin means versus the silver coin versus the little sale icon that I selected for my incomplete tasks or incomplete purchases. So that's one way that you can arrange thoughts, and you can make those visually very drastic. I see that the gold coin is sort of similar to the silver coin. If I really want to make that stand out more, I can go back to my thoughts type for complete purchases. And now you can see all of my complete purchases are child thoughts of that complete thought type. And if I modify this, I really want the green to stand out more. So let's give it a green background, make it a dark green background with a white font. So that green background really pops. And let's give it a green icon as well. So I'll click on the icon, select stock icon. Well, $, that's green, so we'll select that. And so we just made a subtle little change. We'll go back to Christmas 2019. And there they're starting to stand out just a little bit more. These are items that I have purchased so far. So I'm good on those, still considering on the others. So changing a thought type, it's a universal change. It changes all thoughts and modifies all thoughts of that type with the colors, the icons, etc. that you've set up. So now that I've done that, I also want to change a few thought relationships. That's one of the key topics today, modifying thought relationships. And in this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an intervening thought. So rather than having all the gifts that I'm either buying or thinking about buying for family and friends, etc., as individual thoughts under one Christmas 2019, I'm going to add thoughts for my kids, my wife, my parents, and my Aunt Carol, gifts that I'm buying for people. So I'm going to create those people thoughts, and that way I can clearly review all the thoughts that I'm considering or have purchased or going to purchase for my kids or for Aunt Carol or what have you. So I am going to create some new child thoughts underneath Christmas 2019. And I'll create, I typically refer to my wife as Lo, so I'll create a thought for Lo. I'll say the kids, Aunt Carol, and my parents, I'll just say Ma and Pa. So I've created these individual thoughts, and now I can start rearranging how thoughts are connected. And once again, there's a few different options that you have when you're creating these intervening thoughts. So I'll start with Lo, and I can just click and drag. The Wood Brothers, for example, is a gift that I've already purchased. So I can simply click and drag And so that Wood Brothers thought is no longer falling under Christmas. It's now falling under the thought for low. I've just simply done a click and drag from a sibling thought area into a child thought area of the current active thought. And under the Wood Brothers, since I already purchased it, I've got the email, the confirmation from eTix. That is related. So that's actually going to go under Wood Brothers. Here's my other eTix item, click and drag. And those are actually subcategories of Wood Brothers. So now I make Wood Brothers the active thought and click and drag them from low. So you can see I can move thoughts around very fluidly and very easily within the brain to restructure. I purchased them from eTix. Here's my confirmation. And I thought I had a printed version. Let me go back to thoughts that were complete. Disney, Bo, Eddie, and there's the Wood Brothers. So maybe I didn't mark that right. Let's just review. Vintage, sleeping, and Nintendo, and incomplete. No, I think I got everything that I need right there. So I am going to go back to my 2019 and continue with other items for low. So I make low the active thought, and I can scroll down through my list, and Nintendo Switch was not for her. This target item is flat screen TV. That's really for my kids. The Google Nest, that is what Laura's getting, so I'll click and drag there. So you can see whether it's an item I'm considering, an item I've already purchased, or something that I'm going to purchase, haven't gotten it yet. They're all still, they have those properties, but they all fall under the low thought. And there's ways to make this go a little quicker, and once again, it's with that control click feature. So let's talk about the items. Many of these items are items that I'm going to be or have purchased for my kids. So those are the Disney Plus, control click, and there's a few more wife items. I'll add those in just a moment. This Amazon item, I know what that is. The camping stove, the sleeping bags. My kids and I are big campers. The Coleman, fire department cooler, that's for my dad. This Centro is actually a bike helmet for the kids, racing goggles for the swim team kids, and scavenger hunt for the kids. So now I control clicked on those items, adding them into the selection box. And now what I can do is activate this kid's thought. I right click and I select to link my selected thoughts as child thoughts of the current active thought, that's the kids. I can go back to Christmas and I right click in the selected thought area. I haven't closed the selection, so I still have those same thoughts selected, and I unlink those, again, from the current active thought, Christmas 2019. So now I took a chunk of, 7, 8 thoughts, and just with a couple of clicks, I moved those thoughts from one area to another very, very quickly and easily. Once again, I think the click and drag is really the fastest option for Ma and Pa. My mother plays Mahjong, so I'm going to drag that in. My dad is on the fire department. He likes fire department stuff. He gets that. There's more Mahjong. Coleman fire department cooler. And I think that takes care of my parents. So there's still a few more thoughts in here that I need to iron out, get them in the right area. So Aunt Carol gets all the dog stuff. So she gets the dog collar and the garden sculpture. And then back to the kids, there's that Nintendo Switch that goes there. So you can see I missed a few. I didn't get them all on the first try, but as I whittle down this list, I see exactly what is left over. There's low, and there's the Kindle and the Eddie Bauer gloves. And so now, let's go back to Christmas 2019. Christmas 2019, I've recategorized how I've structured all this information. Instead of just a cluster of dozens of different items that I'm researching or looking into, under Christmas, I've got some new categories. Christmas for Aunt Carol, Christmas for Lo, Christmas for my parents, and Christmas for the kids. So I'm really focused on everything that I'm doing for Christmas for Laura. I can just click and I can clearly see here's Christmas 2019, gift ideas for Lo, and what I have is all listed down below and easily accessible. So I can decide, all right, are we getting the blanket from Target, or am I going to get her to the new Kindle? Or after I purchase the Google Nest, I think that's probably, I've gotten everything that I need to get. And I also want to share with you just really quickly, when I purchase something, such as I did with the Wood Brothers, you can see that the ticket, the location where I purchased the tickets opens up here in the content window. There's that PDF. I wasn't sure why I didn't see that earlier, but there's the PDF. These are the actual tickets, so I can send this to the printer to print out these tickets for the concert. And on the notes, I think here I've got it on Wood Brothers. Let's see if I've got some notes up there. No, I didn't take any notes. The tickets are notes enough. Maybe it's the Eddie Bauer gloves that I took some notes on. There I've got the Amazon thoughts. No, I don't have the notes. Oh, here they are. I actually copied them into another document. Let me just open those notes. I've got the tracking ID, the order number information. I'm just going to copy that information. I saved it in a markdown document, but here on the notes, I'll paste it there on the notes so I can easily get to this information in the future. I've got the order number and I've got the tracking ID. So if I want to look up, when these are being delivered, they were already delivered. So if I copy and paste that tracking ID into a browser window, and maybe I even want to make that a web link. So I'll link to a URL for this thought. There's the URL. So if I ever want to track that package, I just go to that thought and it pops up with the tracking ID. And as you can see, that was delivered on December 16th. So that item is all taken care of. Thus, it's got the complete thought type. So you can see I'm keeping track of everything that I'm purchasing, looking into very quickly and easily. And one thing that I wanted to share with you, now that we've cleaned up this area of the brain, I actually took a screenshot right before we got started today, right when the meeting was starting up. I grabbed a quick screenshot of the brain. And this, if you remember, is the exact same brain, and this is what it looked like before. So where are those Eddie Bauer gloves for my wife? The mittens are sleeping. There it is. There's that thought. Where's the e-tickets for the Wood Brothers? Well, there's a Wood Brothers Gmail. Here's the e-tickets thought. So it takes a little bit more time to navigate through the brain when they're all clustered together like this. Now that I've added this greater context, whether or not it's been purchased yet, who it's being purchased for, etc., it's just much easier to find in the structure that I've set up. I knew today's call was coming up in the Brain 202 call, so as I was preparing for the holidays this year, I was just dumping everything into this Christmas thought, knowing, oh, I can't wait to clean this up for the Brain 202 class, and now I've accomplished that. So it's much easier to access that information for my Christmas shopping list in the future. So a couple of more features that I want to share with you are thought tags. Let's talk about the difference between thought types and thought tags. Thought types, you can only apply one thought type per thought. It's a major topic or category. So in this scenario, it's whether or not that item has been purchased. So if I go to the kids, they've got the most thoughts. I can see what I've purchased so far, what I want to, what I'm considering, etc. So a thought type adds that greater context. Thought tags, however, are a way of adding multiple attributes to a thought. So you can add more than one thought tag. And thought tags are really nice because you can move them through a thought process from time to time. So for instance, this flat screen TV, I'm actually excited about the flat screen TV too. I'm going to alt click on this thought and look at my list of existing thought tags. You already saw me create some thought types today, so I won't create any new thought tags in this brain. I'll use some existing ones. I'm going to give this thought 5 stars. That's my own personal ranking system. 5-star things that I really like or that I'm really focused on and excited about versus 1-star things that I don't like. I'll talk about those in just a moment. But also, since I have not purchased this yet, as I can see, it is incomplete. I'm going to make this a top priority. So it's something that I like and it's a top priority. So it's got two thought tags that appear with it. You can see the thought tags appear as little icons there. I actually have assigned an icon, a smiley face to 5-star items. And top priority, it just gets the little white default tag icon. But when I mouse over, I can see that it's a favorite item, 5 stars, and it's a top priority for me to take care of that. And I can click on those as well. So I'll click on my top priority tag to see what all my top priorities are. Once again, I need to do a little gardening because the bacon wrapped turkey, I was researching how to make a bacon wrapped turkey for Thanksgiving. That's done. I can now unlink this from top priority. So I right click and I just select unlink. So my bacon wrapped turkey thought is no longer a top priority. I read how to do it. That's great. The marinated grilled portobello mushrooms, I haven't made those yet, so I'm going to leave that a top priority. That's something that I want to make in the future. So here's my top priority. I still need to purchase, my kids love the Milwaukee Bucks. They want some Bucks tickets. I'm looking into that. I'm researching doing a triathlon this next year. So a variety of different things, a wiring chart for my VW bus. You can see it's kind of studying that is going to be quite a task. But again, it's a top priority item. So these are all items that they don't share anything in common. Rewiring an old VW bus has nothing to do with purchasing Bucks tickets or training for and signing up for a triathlon. What they all share in common is their top priorities. They're sort of my current focus in my personal life right now. So they fall in various different areas of the brain. The one thing they share in common is they are my top priority. Now, they're also, in this case, the little smiley face, something I'm really excited about as well. And so those are my 5-star items. You can see I'm really excited about learning how to make bacon wrapped turkey. It was great. I'm going to leave it there. So I've got things that I'm very excited about, restaurants, projects, what have you, show up there. Some people often ask me, why create a thought tag for things that you don't like? Why not just not put that into your brain? And I'm going to share with you why. So I'm going to go to my things that I don't like. And again, I've got this star ranking system. Things I really like get 5 stars. I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Things that I don't like. Let's go check it out here in my brain. There's 2 things that I don't like. This is another triathlon that I really did, and just personal opinion. I didn't like the way it was organized, the event where it took place. There was glass in the parking lot where people are running in their bare feet. So it just didn't work out for me. So I need to remember not to sign up for this Bradford Beach Triathlon in the future. So I didn't just, I didn't like it, delete it from my brain. Years from now, when I'm looking at different triathlons to research, and I just do them recreationally for fun, but I'll be reminded, don't do this one, and here's why. So it's just a personal opinion. It's probably maybe improved, and it's a great event for some people. Didn't work out for me. Another, you can see the dentist. That's a medium priority. I need to make a dentist appointment. Do I like going to the dentist? No, I do not. But it has to get done. So therefore, I categorize it as one of my unfavorite things. And right now, it's medium priority if I let this go too long. And again, if I click on the thought, and it's not that I just don't like this dentist in particular. I don't like just going to the dentist. So regardless, that's why I have high priority, low priority, or favorites, unfavorites, etc. in my brain. And those thought tags, along with thought types, can really help me clarify all of that and better understand the information that I'm putting together. And so now, as you can see with the thought types and thought tags that I've created and restructuring my thought relationships, I start having a little bit more clarity throughout the brain. And I'm going to share a few more features with you that add this type of information. The first is the comma trick. Every now and then I'll talk about the comma trick in my Brain 101s, but it is a little bit more of an advanced feature, so I started leaving it out. Now that we're in Brain 202, it's the perfect time to talk about the comma trick. And the comma trick adds what we call context-sensitive naming. It's really just easier to remember it as the comma trick. And what the comma trick does is It simply adds the parent thought name to the new child thought that you've created. So as you can see down below, I've got Christmas 2018, Christmas 2019. Over under past Christmases, I've got 2017, 16, etc. In the future, I'll be creating a thought for Christmas 2020. But I use the date, I use the year in many different areas of my brain. I plan activities for the 4th of July, for Thanksgiving, etc. And so my activities for Thanksgiving 2019, if I just had a thought called 2019, and under Christmas a thought called 2019, I'd have a bunch of thoughts in my brain all with the year, and that's not helpful. It's 2019 things that I'm doing for Christmas, 2019 things that I'm doing for Thanksgiving. So let's use 2020 as an example. When it comes time to start doing my Christmas shopping and planning for 2020, I won't just create a thought called 2020. I'll say comma 2020. And by adding that comma, notice when I click on the thought, it takes the parent name and appends it to the thought name. So it's added the context, 2020. And notice when I mouse over 2019, the full thought name, the brain itself will hide or truncate the thought name. It knows that you're in the context of Christmas right now. So it just shows 2020, 2019, and 2018. But when I mouse over these thoughts, I can see the full context. So now when I do a search, let's just do a search for 2019. You can see I've got 2019 Flambeau, 2019 expenses. That's over in my, where I keep track of all my expenses, and a 2019 list, 2019 Montreal, 2019 results for races that I did. So, and even there's 2019 groceries for Thanksgiving. So instead of seeing in this scenario, and there's a scroll bar, there's 52 thoughts that contain the word 2019, but I know exactly what the context is because of that comma trick. So I don't see just a bunch of thoughts called 2019, and I won't see that for 2020 as well. So the comma trick is a really, really great feature. If you forget and you need to go back and add the comma, or you're just learning about this trick and you're thinking, gosh, I really want to use that. So let's say I created the thought already for 2021. Oops, I forgot to add the comma. So that thought is just called 2021. When we get to 2021, if I do that for other thoughts, again, I've created a little bit of a mess. I have to visit the thought to see if that's my 2021 Christmas, 2021 family vacation, camping lists, whatever the case may be. So I click on the thought and simply, and you can add the comma at the beginning or the end. I say comma Christmas. So I've added that thought context. There, the thought just appears as 2020, but when I mouse over, it's 2021 Christmas, so I can keep track. And then finally, you can also forget and delete thoughts. Sometimes when you're gardening, as you've seen me do here today, I've restructured, or maybe I've recategorized with thought types or tags, or relinked thoughts into different areas. Typically, for my, in this case, for my Christmas information, I actually keep track of this information so I know what I purchased for someone back in 2018. If I click on Christmas, I'll have like a couple of things that I did for Dad, mittens, some Amazon orders, Spencer, etc. Down below. And if I want to keep track of that, notice I've created, once again, sort of an interlinking thought, past Christmases. So I can just click and drag 2018 up to past Christmases and right-click on that link between Christmas and 2018 and select unlink. Now, I'm not going to do this yet because I want to share another feature with you. I'm going to go back and right-click on the link between past Christmases and 2018. Let's unlink that. And this is a very important component to share with you today, and we refer to this as exclusive parents, creating an exclusive parent. I know already 2018, I want it unlinked from Christmas and linked up to past Christmas. So when I click and drag, I'm simply going to press the Shift key. So I click on Shift and then release my mouse trigger. And notice that 2018 is no longer a child thought of Christmas. That thought has been unlinked. Let's go back to it here in my past thought list. You can see its only parent thought is past Christmas up above. So that's called an exclusive parent. When you hold down the shift key and link one thought from one thought to another, but if you're holding down the shift, any other parents that it's currently connected to will be unlinked. It doesn't delete anything other than the link between the two thoughts. And here you can see in 2018, more so than creating child thoughts down below, I created these long lists of everything that was being purchased for my kids or for my wife or what have you. So many different ways to add that information into the brain. Mostly done in notes in 2018. 2019, I did it a little bit more with thoughts. So I could keep track of the purchase orders, and shipping numbers, and tracking IDs, etc. So let's go back to 2019 and let's also simply delete some content. When you're gardening, as you've seen me do here, I've recategorized, I've restructured, I've added thought types, I've moved thoughts around to different areas. Sometimes you just want to delete it. You don't need that content anymore. You don't want it showing up in your search results or cluttering something. I don't need to start thinking about Christmas 2020 and 2021 quite yet. I'm not even done with 2019 yet. I've got no brain space for 2020 or 2021. So let's go ahead and delete these thoughts. First, you can right-click on any thought in the brain and select to forget. Forgetting a thought in the brain, sort of the equivalent of throwing it into the brain's recycle bin. It doesn't actually delete the thought. It forgets the thought. The thought is still there, but it's being hidden from the view. You can run a report to find all forgotten thoughts, or I can click on Options and go to Show Forgotten Thoughts. So as you can see, 2020 is still there. It's simply been grayed out. So the thought hasn't been deleted. If I had notes on that thought or file attachments or what have you, they'd still be there. It's just not in view in the default view of the brain. Notice that I've turned on my forgotten thoughts. I've got this little bar reminding me or telling me showing forgotten thoughts right now. That's why it's actually still there. The next step is to right-click, and we go from forgetting a thought to deleting. At this point, I can either remember it, so I reactivate it as a valid native thought, or I can delete that thought. And in this scenario, I'll go ahead and delete Christmas 2020. So let's actually take a shortcut. I'm going to turn off my showing forgotten thoughts. I don't have any forgotten thoughts in the view right now. A nice shortcut. If you know for a fact you want to delete a thought, you don't need the two-step process. I can hold down the Shift key. So once again, we're back to pressing the Shift key. I press Shift, I right-click, and instead of being presented in the context menu with the option to delete this thought, I am given the option, or excuse me, instead of being presented with the option to forget, I go straight to delete. So it's just a nice little shortcut. Obviously, forgetting it's a nice safety net. If you're moving your mouse too fast, you right-click and click on something, you're not going to accidentally delete a thought. You might accidentally forget a thought. There's a few steps to go through there. It doesn't happen too often, but if you accidentally click the wrong button, you would forget. By holding down the Shift, you're not going to accidentally shift, right-click, move your mouse to the right cursor, the right area, and delete. So it's a nice little safety net. In this case, I know what I'm doing. I Shift, right-click, and I delete 2021. So it's not a forgotten thought. It is deleted from the brain. And I should point out, before this brain syncs in the background, I still have the option to say Edit, Undo. So I don't have my brain set to auto syncing. As soon as your brain auto syncs, it clears out the undo option. I turned my auto sync off before I started the webinar today to share with you every action that I've done, modifying links, creating, even setting thought types and tags and setting all those up. I can undo everything that I've shown you today and go all the way back. This is a long scrolling list. All the way back to the very first thing was renaming an attachment. I renamed a remember that one thought at the very beginning of the day, the flat screen TV thoughts. I started renaming there. And I changed the wallpaper. Those are the first two steps that I did today. So I can undo all the way back to there. Don't need to do that. I'm happy with how I've set things up. But if I just want to undo the delete of 2021, I could just take that one step back. And as I mentioned, as soon as you turn on auto sync and the brain syncs up to the brain cloud, all of those undo features are sort of reset. So the undo in the brain only stays active while that brain is open, before I close the tab, or before that brain syncs to the cloud. As soon as it syncs to the cloud, you can't undo anything that you've recently done anymore because you've got a copy of this brain on the cloud as well. So I will turn on auto sync, go ahead and sync up those changes, and everything that I've done today is now available to me online or in the other devices that I sync to, my iOS device and my other desktops and laptops that I sync to as well. And then the final component that I wanted to share with you today is going back to that control click, the mass select of thoughts. Let's talk a little bit more about that before we end today's webinar or open it up to any additional questions. As I mentioned earlier, you can control click on a thought to add it into the selection box. If I control click on the same thought again, it removes it from the selection box. But there's more to the selection box than just saying, hey, everything's selected, unlink it from its current parent, or link it as a child to the new thought that I've navigated to. And so I'm going to share that with you today. And this is a particularly beneficial tool to use if you need to export your brain into some type of list for, maybe you just want a shopping list on a piece of paper. You're not taking your phone with you in the mall. You don't want to be that person that's clicking and look like they're tweeting and texting as they're walking around doing their holiday shopping. You just want a paper list. Or in a business environment, you've created this amazing brain, you've restructured it. Now it's time to share it with your team who doesn't use the brain, or with your class of students who just prefer to see it in an outline, like a syllabus for a class. I am going to control click on Christmas. Again, remember that I can control click on a child thought, or excuse me, on a gate to add all those child thoughts to the selection box. Or I can, let's start from scratch, I can control click and drag a square around a grouping of thoughts to add them. So many different ways to utilize that control click feature. I can also, now that I've added Christmas to the selection box, and that's the current active thought, I can go up to thought up to edit and choose the option select related thoughts. So I'm going to grow my selection box by adding to the selection every child word link or everything below Christmas, my current active thought, I can go up to 10 generations. So every child thought for 10 generations, I'll add those to the selection box. They've all been added. I'll even add this holidays, so that'll be the parent thought. And I've got 75 thoughts in my selection box. So I am now going to right click in the selection box. And this is the other component that I wanted to share with you today. We're going to export all of this as a text outline. Now in this scenario, it's really just my Christmas activities and things that I'm doing with my family and items that I'm shopping for and purchasing. But again, keep this in mind. This is a really great feature if you're submitting a brain in a flat piece of paper that doesn't have that, you're unable to share the dynamic aspect of the brain. You just need it as an outline to share with your team. So I copy these 75 thoughts as a text outline. Those are on my clipboard now. And I am just going to open up a tool that I use, Notepad++. And I'll create a new document. I right click and paste. And you can do this in Word. You can do this in Excel spreadsheets if you want cells and tables. But it copied all of that information, those 75 thoughts, and it pasted them in the structure as they exist. So here's my holidays. Underneath that was a child thought called Christmas. Here's my Christmas cards, Christmas 2019. There's low. Here's all the items that I listed. There's the Wood Brothers and the e-tickets down below, etc. So the same structure of the brain now reflected in a very linear outline that can be submitted in a document or in paper or printed out. And from here, I can restructure if I just want to add additional information or what have you, reformat this information. Can certainly do that moving on. These types of properly formatted documents can also be imported back into the brain. That's really not on today's topic, but I just wanted to share with you, if I started out with this, someone sent me an outline of their Christmas shopping or holiday schedule or what have you, I can take this, copy it, and paste it into the brain. So it's a two-way street. I can export lists and outlines out of the brain. I can certainly import them back into the brain as well. And then also with this information, so that's just a real quick highlight of a more advanced feature of the brain application, exporting. We can also export, if I click from the brain, File, Export. Once again, I can export that text outline. I can export the entire brain or a selection of the brain to files and folders, or even much more advanced feature, export it to a JSON. JSON is really the sort of the coding behind the scenes. So I'm capturing all the thought types, the tags, the file attachments, etc., all in JSON. A much, much more advanced feature of the application. If you don't know what JSON is, then this feature is not for you. If you know what JSON, the coding language, is, you might be very excited to see that brains can be exported to JSON. But finally, the last component that I also wanted to share, I just recalled this from my notes, is that we can run reports on data in the brain as well. So when I open up my report, I have an alphabetical listing of all the thoughts in this particular brain. So my brain has 3,696 thoughts in it. But if I just want to find all thoughts that have been modified in the past 24 hours, or maybe I want to find all thoughts that were modified last week. I was on vacation, I got back, I sit down at my brain and think, gosh, what was I working on before I left? So we'll say all thoughts. We can say all thoughts with notes, all thoughts by attachments. I'll do that, all thoughts by attachments. So they have some type of internal attachment, and they were modified within the past month. There they are. All of these thoughts have an attachment. So my Spotify thought, I updated my password there. Things that I've been cooking, my weekend checklist, I modify that constantly. So these are all the thoughts in my brain that have recently been modified, that have an attachment that have recently been modified. So there's a lot that you can do with your reports to really review all of the content that has been going into your brain. It's not just a way to access your data. It's a way the brain is a way to examine and review your data and better understand how all of your data fits together. And with that, we're almost on top of the hour. We've got just 2 minutes. I'm going to open up the question panel, and I see that Jay had his hands full with quite a bit of questions. So I'll just scroll down to the bottom here to see what questions maybe possibly we didn't get to. And I'll just jump in to grab one. I see Bert had a question. You changed the links that relate to the gifts to specific people. Can you easily make a view that reorganizes the view to the previous categories of bought, need, buy, etc.? Yeah, there's many, many different viewing options, Bert, and I really even didn't touch on that subject today, but let's go ahead and do that. So Bert, I believe what you want to say, or what you're saying is you still want to see all the thoughts that you have bought, need to buy, or whatever, but now you can only do them one at a time by person. If I still want to see them all on the screen at one time, I'm going to give myself a little more screen real estate. I'm going to minimize the reports. I don't need that open right now. I am going to minimize my notes. So there's some buttons on the splitter bar between the Plex and the notes. And these help you, flip-flop it under overview, side by side. In this case, I'm going to scroll those notes over. So I'm full screen with the Plex. and I'm going to go to my thought type for purchasing, or no, yeah, tag, thought type for purchasing. So here's all things that I'm purchasing in my brain, whether I have, I'm considering it, or I'm going to, and I am going to go into what we call mind map view. Let's share a few different views. First, I'll just click on the plus sign, and the plus sign, we call this normal one. You're viewing the active thought, its child, and its children. So you're basically viewing grandchildren on the screen. So there's all the thoughts that I talked about today. And I can play around with this if I want to make the fonts a little larger, what have you. There's a lot that you can do with adjusting these views. But let's go into what we call mind map view. And mind map view, from here I can say, do I want to view the Wood brothers? I can click on the little minus sign, and it basically there's expanding and contracting. So I don't want to click on or view the Wood brothers child thoughts, or if I do, I click to expand. So there's a lot that you can do with different types of views within the brain. This is the mind map view, and as you can see, it really takes quite a bit of screen real estate. And I can even go back to my Christmas 2019, make that the active thought, still see that same information and context, but now from Christmas to the people to the products that I'm purchasing or considering. And if I make Christmas the active thought, I right click and activate this thought. Then I'm in mind map view and I can expand from here. So I click on the plus sign so I can see extended family gifts, holiday activities, and here's all the people for 2019 over on the right. And I can click on the font, or font size rather, the slider, to give this a little more screen real estate. Again, you can see it really depends. I broadcast on a very low resolution so that the GoToMeeting keeps up with what I'm trying to share on the screen. But the larger the monitor you have, from my other office, I've got a much larger monitor. I sometimes go into these expanded views, mind map view, so I can see everything on a project that I'm working on all at once, or take a screenshot of that and take that to my next meeting and say, here's the overview of the project. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Let's review everything. So these expanded views, even though I changed the views, Bert, as you mentioned, so that's cataloged under people, I can still see everything that I need to see at one time in these different views. And really, this particular view depends on, again, your screen real estate and how much room you have or space you have on the screen to see everything at once. So great question. Thank you, Bert, for bringing that up. And Ty just asked the question, I'm wondering if there's an easy way to get thoughts from Evernote. Everything in Evernote has a URL. I don't run Evernote. I think I've got a test copy of it. But nonetheless, go ahead, open Evernote, right click, and you'll notice that everything has a shareable, I think they call it a shareable URL. And you can certainly copy and paste that into the brain. Anything with a URL can be associated with a thought in your brain. And that's what really also makes, sort of in the family of Evernote, Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. You can right click on those individual files that are in your Google Drive or in Dropbox, and even in, what's the one, OneNote. With OneNote, it's a little different. You right click, get the shareable URL. With OneNote, it's best to paste that into the notes, because the shareable URL that OneNote gives you are two URLs in one. And if you just attach that as a web link, the brain can't decipher the two links, but the notes can. So with OneNote, you paste it into the notes. With Evernote, with Google Drive, Dropbox, you can copy those items and paste it as a URL and it'll launch. There's no import feature, so it's really one at a time. And of course, you can always copy and paste text and content. And Ty, I believe we have, I did a demo once on all those sort of disparate information sources and bringing those into the brain. So those are, that demo exists. And if you want to know more about that or see that in a GoToMeeting, please feel free to log in to, or send a note rather into support@thebrain.com, and we'll be happy to send that to you. And I'm just going to grab the last two questions. Thank you, Jay, for for tackling all these questions today in the GoTo meeting. The last two questions, the first one came in from Hillard. Do you accept feature requests? And if so, what link should I use? Hillard, we absolutely do. As I mentioned before we started today, and if those of you that follow our newsletters, you may be aware that TheBrain 11 is currently in beta. It's publicly available information. If you go to our download page, you'll see there's a link to TheBrain 11. It's in beta, but that means it's in active development. And of course, we're taking feature requests. And I would recommend, Hillard, that you go to our forums, forums.thebrain.com, and there's a place in there with TheBrain 11, and you can drop as many different feature requests in as you'd like. We'd be happy to hear them. And then Joseph had our last question of the day, which is there a way to show, see, print the dates a thought was created? Absolutely. Every thought within your brain has a history. So I'm going to go back to normal view. So, oops, I clicked on sync. I'm going to go back to normal view, and I will just grab this Christmas thought. This is probably a pretty old thought in my brain. We're about to find out. When I open up the thought properties display, down below you can see when the thought was created. So I created this back in 2010. When it was last modified, that's today. And this is its thought ID number. But nonetheless, every thought has a little history button, an hourglass, and I can click to view the full history of this thought. So I can see when it was modified, what changes were made to it, etc. So I can see who made the change. This is a personal brain of mine, so I'm the only one making changes. What the change was, whether something was linked, the note was modified, etc. More details, so what was unlinked? Christmas 2020 was unlinked today, Christmas 2018. So there's a lot of things that happened today. And then notice it was last modified back in December of 2018. So we jumped from 2019 to 2018 when I'm modifying this thought. So the brain is keeping track of everything along the way, and you can see very, very quickly and easily what those changes are. And you could take a screenshot of this window if you'd like, or just copy and paste the date if that's really what you're after. And also attachments will have that information too. Let me go to a thought with an attachment. Here, this thought has a open up my content window, notes MD file, and you can see this MD file. It's a markdown document, was modified today at 9:02 a.m. So each individual attachment, the brain will show you details about whether that's an internal file, external file, when it was created, when it was modified, etc. So attachments, all that information is accessible, and individual thoughts, what's changing in those thoughts. I can also really quickly click on this little clock icon in the brain to see all recently modified thoughts. That's very helpful just to see and it's the past 30 days. In the past 30 days, here's what's been modified in this brain. If I want to know more specifics about what was modified, I would need to hover over the thought. It tells me the basics, or I can click on that thought to activate it, click to open its thought properties, and click on the hourglass. And so this 2021, I just created it today, and then renamed it, if you recall. So just a short little history list on that particular thought. So absolutely, that information is available to you. And more importantly, the brain offers the option to have Team Brain, a collaborative database that multiple people are collaborating on. And that history that you just saw, modification, updates, the reports that you can run, all help you find out what thoughts were modified, what was changed, when it was changed, and by whom. So there's accountability within Team Brains. So who modified the notes on this particular thought, etc. So just some really, really great features for a collaborative brain as well. And of course, you can learn more about Team Brain on our website at www.thebrain.com. And so that concludes our webinar today. Thanks everyone so much for taking the time to take your knowledge of the brain to the next level with TheBrain 202. Again, if anything today was just a little too complex for you and you need to start from scratch, you can sign up for our Brain 101 class. We're having one this Friday. I'll be teaching. I'll probably share this same brain or components of this same brain in that demo on Friday. And if you have any additional questions, you can write into us at support@thebrain.com. We're always happy to hear from you and answer any additional questions that you may have. So thanks, everyone. Have a really great day and enjoy the rest of the week. And as always, enjoy your brain. Thanks, everyone.